Welcome to Rick on Life. I'm your host, Rick Amitin, and this is where I love to talk about things that affect our daily lives. Today, I want to begin a conversation, and I want to talk about what I think is a missing ingredient in our personal lives, perhaps, but on a grand scale in our nation and perhaps even around the world. Flip Wilson, which happens to be one of my favorite comedians, said that love is the feeling that you feel just before you feel a feeling that you've never felt before. Who can deny that love feels great? You're a blessed individual if you've known love, no doubt about it. And if you have never experienced the deep, penetrating, life-giving force of love, I'll guarantee you that you're looking for it. Now, I'm a man of faith, and I believe that we come from love. I believe that we are love, and I believe that we are actually designed to give and receive love. And at the risk of sounding simplistic, which actually, though, is my goal, in the absence of love, we have chaos. And conflicts are the result of a misordered priority of function. When we fail to understand love as the nature of our existence and the basis for our relationships and the ideology for our politics and the framework for our corporate enterprise, we all lose. Because love is an anchor, a blueprint, a way of life. And whether we're talking about our personal or private relationships, or we're talking about our local and community involvement, or we're talking about our national identity and our allegiance, or we're talking about world participation and how we engage, love is the cornerstone for all of that. And it's love that keeps us from missing the mark. And love is actually the mark and the target that we all should be aiming for is love and the better part and the higher part of ourselves. In 1965, Jackie DeShannon sang the lyrics to Burt Bacharach's song, What the World Needs Now. The first stanza or line goes, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love, not just for some, but for everyone. From the bully on the schoolyard playground to the tyrant that's drowning in illegal power, love is what's missing. Love is the inspiration of life. And when that inspiration is not present, motivation takes over. And then vision becomes very distorted. And when that inspiration is not present, we become driven by faulty factors. Because love has no destructive qualities. Not toward oneself, and certainly not toward others. Now, I've been participating in life events for about 6 decades. And I have never seen, nor did I ever think that I would see, a world as it exists today. Because I believe that extremism, which I define as the religion of selfishness, has taken center stage. And so much of our corruption has caught up to us. And we're facing it now. Or in some instances, I think perhaps we are trying not to face it. But the reality is that we are looking squarely in the eyes of what we have created. And there's no place to turn, no one else to go to blame. We can point fingers and we can say it's this segment of society or that segment of society. We can say it's this arm of the government or that arm of the government, or it's this social ill or it's that social ill. But the truth of the matter is that there is not one of us who's old enough to be participating that isn't at some length responsible for everything that we're facing today. And we have to look at ourselves and we have to say, what is it that I can do here to make things better? And if the answer to that simply rests on the annihilation of somebody else, or the disconnection or the denial of somebody else, to put someone else out or down, that's not the answer. Because we are facing extremism and the selfishness that goes along with it, to the extent that, in spite of some arguments to the contrary, extremism is not necessary for moderation. And moderation should be something that we all recognize as an important position to be in, because moderation has its own balance. It's extremism that keeps us off balance, and it nullifies the beauty that moderation has naturally, because moderation is the ability to be at peace in a world of difference. Now, in the United States, when I inventory our political system, I see an imbalance caused by extremism. And our two-party system we have had to endure the corruption of self-serving politicians on both sides of the aisle. And wisdom and honesty and transparency and serving the people and representing the needs of the people, all people, is almost non-existent. We've been lobbied into cliques and clans and segments and pockets, and we are divided up now into so many little cliques and even cliches that it's hard for us to see one another. And unless we're going to bring love back to the table, when we recognize the value of all human beings, not just people who have our point of view or have our particular bent toward life, or the giving us the way that we want it to be, and denying, people who have a different way of seeing things and a different way of looking at things. We're painting ourselves a pretty hopeless picture. But when I could love you as a human being, embrace the ability of understanding the differences, the way that we look at things, the way that we think about things, the way that we might feel about things, when I can embrace you as a human being of equal value, then we might get back to a place of understanding our differences. And instead of trying to survive on the teeter-totter of extremism, we can get back to something that's so important, and that's being rooted and grounded in individual rights that do not infringe upon the rights of other individuals. Because what started out here as a work of completion has been completely taken over by competition. And as a result, we've lost our dialogue. We've lost our ability to listen. And when we talk, we're only expressing what we already know, what we already believe, what we already embrace, and we're not learning anything new. But when we are listening to someone who has a different view, rather than taking the position that's just nuts and that's just crazy, how could you differ with my point of view? Well, I'd like to suggest that point of view is nuts itself. We don't all have the same experiences. We don't all have those experiences that shape our core beliefs and shape our outlooks and shape our way of thinking. And so our individuality and our personal life experiences is what's driving the lens that we're looking through. And if we could just decide to love one another and not use hate as our means of moving through the world, then I suggest that we bring hope back to the table. And love is hope. Love is something that's the missing ingredient in our world. And I have hope. I have hope for us as a country. I have hope for us as a people. And I have hope for us as a world. But I cannot see you as an enemy simply because you have a different point of view. But when we stagnate into only thinking that our way is the only way, we've painted ourselves into a corner. And we're not being our best. We're not rising to the challenges that we're facing in our world. We're seeing each other as problems. And instead, I think that is wrong. And I think it leads to wrong-headedness. And I think it leads to wrong decisions. And I think it's harmful and destructive. As you know, many of you have heard me say before, one of the highlights that I have every day is a 2-block walk with my grandson to school in the morning. And I have created a saying with him. And I say part of it, and he repeats the other part of it, and we've been doing this for a long time. But we start off by saying, I say excellence, and he says, no trouble. I say we don't have problems, and he says, we have challenges. And I say, and he says, and a brain to solve them. We can solve our challenges if we will see them as opportunities. But if we're only going to look at all of the stuff that's going on, and all of the social ills, and all of the corruption that we see, really in every segment of society, and right now I cannot find I cannot find a major component of our society that does not bear the marks of corruption. And that's where self-centeredness always takes us. And we've lost something here. We've lost the ability to allow ourselves to love ourselves and other people in a healthy and holistic way. I want to see that come back. That's part of my mission. It's part of my commitment to do what I can to make the world a better place. I was someone who had experienced hate, self-destruction. I had been involved in things that only existed because love wasn't present. Love wasn't there. And I've learned how to recover from experiences that were unhealthy, destructive, not accommodating to my fellow man, was certainly not my best contribution. And while I'm not interested in making excuses, I've taken responsibility for my life and to not be a hater. Hating is so taxing. Hating is such a burden. Hating takes so much energy. Hating is driving. It causes you to be driven to a place of very little peace, very little joy. Life isn't about this huge competition. Life is about completing the task of learning to love. Our purpose is to love. Our mission should be not who can I hate and who can I put down and who can I stop in their tracks and who can I shove my view down their throat and who can I hate. Really, it should be about how can I grow here? How can I love beyond the short confines of my own personal experiences? How can I move into a larger world? How can I be a friend to someone who is different than I am? And I'm not talking about just toleration. I'm not talking about letting someone talk just so I could say, well, I gave them a chance. But they didn't see it my way. Well, they didn't see it your way before you gave them a chance. And that's not really the kind of adult dialogue that I'm suggesting that we should have. We should actually try to listen to understand. And all that we get in life, whether it's an education, it's monetary success, it's positions of influence and power, and all that we get, if we don't understand the larger world, if we don't understand the needs and the challenges and seek for remedy to those challenges, then really what are we accomplishing? When I'm just convinced now, coming from a place of learning to hate people who were different than me, to being able to love, not in spite of their differences, but because of their differences. Now, we can only go as far as our understanding is going to take us. So I think above all else, we should be seeking understanding here, not how to inflict our view or our will on someone else. And it's not very noteworthy to feel like because somebody had done us wrong, had inflicted their will on us against our will, that it's now just our turn to now inflict our will back on someone else. This just becomes a tug of war that never truly makes any bona fide progress. We're just exchanging one wrong for another. It's not something we can actually build on. It's not something that creates the kind of change that makes our world a better place. And if we don't make our world a better place, it's because we have not brought the best of ourselves out. And I think it's impossible to bring the best of ourselves out if we don't use love as an actual blueprint, as an anchor, as an encouragement. If we don't understand that loving other people begins with loving ourselves and move away from hatred, then we're not really going to change much. We can go through our elections, we can go through our political processes, we can have our protests, we can become very loud and boisterous and even destructive. But none of this that we're currently seeing is different than what we've seen in the past. It's just the world that I'm looking at now is much larger, many more people involved, and it just appears to be bigger because it is the far-reaching extremes that get a lot of attention. But really, there is a core, there is something deep inside all of us who would like to be like Flip Wilson and feel that feeling that maybe we've never ever felt before, or maybe we just haven't felt it for a long time. It's not easy to love people who appear to be people who want to deny your existence. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's not easy to be empathetic and compassionate toward people who seem to have a very narrow view that really doesn't include you. It's very difficult to build a relationship with people who seem to be just completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. But I'm saying for us to find peace, we have to find moderation. And in finding moderation, we're bringing everybody to the table, understanding that everybody has the same value. And I think we've made a huge misunderstanding in perception here on a large scale. And that is that everybody has the same value. Man, woman, doesn't matter what color, what background, where you come from. We all have the same value. We're not all as profitable as the next person. So we don't all have the same profitability, but we do have the same value. And because of that value, there is a way that we should treat each other, understanding that value, and that I'm no more valuable than the next person is. My talents, my gifting in life, what I'm able to accomplish, the contributions that I make. Significance, of course, is found in the solutions that you bring to the table. That's significance. And so our profitability might be different from one another based on our skill set, on our abilities, on the things that we can solve. But our value does not change and is not determined by our profitability. So all of us have to find our place of significance, our place of contribution, the problem or the challenge that we are able to solve. We all have to find that's our place. That's our place in the big picture. But whether I pass the homeless person on the street or the mayor of our city, I don't see a human being with any more value or any less. There are choices that have been made. There are reasons why one person is in one place and another person is in another place in life. Sometimes it's not just the choice. Sometimes there's mental illness, there's conditions, there's circumstances beyond someone's control that may have forced them into a particular spot in life. But the value is no greater from the least to the most. Value is the dignity of every human life, to be seen as important, to be seen and valued and affirmed and giving a sense of connection and belonging, inclusion, is the value and the right of every human being. But now what we attain in life, the levels that we reach, that's our profitability. That becomes something that is defined individually with what we decide to do with this one great life that we have. Some of us who didn't have a good beginning to life, it maybe started in difficult circumstances, may have taken longer, may have had to overcome a lot of other challenges to be able to find our place of profitability and significance. But nowhere along the way was it right for any person at any level of life, at any stage of life, to be treated as less valuable than the human being standing next to them. I want to talk more about this. This is just sort of an introduction that I have to this thought. I'd like to take the next few shows that I'm going to do here, a couple of shows, and I want to explore what I think that we can do to actually make things better. Thank you so much for being here today, listening to me with this dialogue. I'd love to hear from you. You can write to me at rickonlife@gmail.com with your comments, thoughts. I'd be interested to hear from you, of course. And just remember, whatever's going on in your life, just sprinkle a little love on it. I'm Rick Amitin. I'll see you next time.